A brand new PGA Tour season is upon us with the Safeway Open this weekend in Silverado Resort and Spa. And it's going to be a wild year. I think it's 50 different events planned for this season because of all the shuffling to the schedule. We got 6 different majors on this year. So it's going to be a jam-packed year. We're kicking things off somehow with the Safeway Open this weekend, a very interesting field. We're going to break it down and get you set for PGA DFS. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gdula. He is the managing editor for numberFire. Brandon, Dustin Johnson, a little bit richer after this past week. Tried to make it interesting on Monday. He certainly did. How you doing? Xander almost made a run there.
Yeah, I wasn't super glued in just because of, DJ's lead entering. I don't know. I didn't really have a whole lot of excitement for the Tour Championship. It probably rivals my excitement for the Safeway Open. And anytime you use the word interesting for the field, it's not great. Yeah. But at least we got NFL coming up. We got the US Open coming up. So, it was nice to have such a long break between the seasons, kind of forget what happened last year.
Right.
I can't even remember who won the FedEx Cup and the Tour Championship last season. It's been that long. So,
yeah.
Yeah, but hey, we got Siwoo Kim as a favorite to kick off the season.
I opened up the odds at FanDuel Sportsbook and actually laughed. It's not even LOL. It's I actually physically laughed. There was a noise, an audible noise that came out of my mouth when I opened the odds board, because initially we had Matt Kuchar in this field. And it's okay, at least there's Kuch. And then Matt Kuchar withdrew. So now, as you said, Siwoo Kim is a favorite. He is 16-1. Nobody else is shorter than 20. So it's a wide open field. Maybe we can phrase it that way. And it's going to be tough to find golfers we want to use. One of the questions we have on the sheet for today is, can you play cash? That's where we are at for this week. So we're going to break things down, try to get you set, but this is going to be a very interesting slate for sure. Before we do that, though, quick scheduling update for this week, because we have a jam-packed week ahead of us here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed and on the FanDuel YouTube page. We're going to have the solo shot at 9 a.m. and the MLB DFS Q&A every day at 4 p.m. That is still the same. We are adding in a 3-person discussion. I had to, again, try to phrase. On the solo shot, I said 3-way, Brandon, so I'm sorry I've roped you into something you did not agree to. But it's a 3-person discussion about the Week 1 slate. May involve a live snake draft on air. Who's to say? We'll figure that out for Friday, 3:30 p.m. Also, the Heat Check NFL edition. Week 1 previews coming up on Thursday. We will have that on the DFS feed, but also streaming live on YouTube starting at 10 a.m. on Thursday. I had said today that we were going to have the waiver wire Q&A this afternoon. I was wrong. It's actually not starting until next week. So next week at 3:30, we'll have the waiver wire Q&A. But either way, a lot of stuff coming here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Make sure you are subscribed to that, but also subscribe to the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages. That's where all those Q&As will be to get you set. And again, the Heat Check NFL Podcast, 10 a.m. Thursday, live on YouTube. Let's dive in here to the Safeway Open. It's at Silverado Resort and Spa. It's 7,166 yards. It is a par 72, and we're going back to, unfortunately, a cut event once again. There are more than 150 golfers in the field, which means we have a cut. The top 65 plus ties make it after the first 2 rounds. Rest in peace, no cut events. I am quite sad to see you leave. Brandon, we do have good amount of data at Silverado. What can we learn from that data in trying to decide which archetype of golfer, besides just good golfers, will do well this weekend? Well,
if you want good golfers, look, they're all these are elite.
They could kick the poo out of me.
They could probably beat me with one club.
Right.
Well, not probably. They would beat me with one club. But when we're coming from the FedEx Cup playoffs and we're entering into the US Open and we get a field like this, it's a little wrong. But yeah, Silverado.
one-word tease for it.
So they've played at Silverado since 2015, and every time we enter the swing season and like an event was played in one year, but like the calendar year of the season is like the next year, it always throws me off. So I'm sorry if I confuse anybody with the years I use, but we have years of data from the Safeway, and I've found some pretty strange splits that actually show a big emphasis on putting and around the green play. Both are more indicative of scoring at Silverado than the average PGA Tour course, according to Data Golf. That was especially true the past 2 years, even with Cameron Champ winning last year. Approach, still the most important tee to green stat, so I don't want to remove it from the equation too much, but not quite as important as it typically is. So I do think that putting is, it's something I've been weighing more and more. It's not super random. It can fluctuate a lot, but it's not totally random. So POA splits, if you have access to those, are going to be on my list. But really, I think what it boils down to is I'm looking for ball strikers who have a short game, or short game guys who aren't terrible with ball striking. So in a field with like no certain things, I'm going to be as picky as I can be whenever possible. But my key stats are still number one, strokes gained approach, number two, putting, specifically on POA, strokes gained around the green, and then driving accuracy. The fairways are a little hard to hit, so I think there's probably a built-in advantage from hitting fairways, but kind of keeping it simple, keeping it a little weird. So I'm really curious to see what you found in your process.
My process was weird because there was no like pull away winner in the off the tee stats. Like last year, like a distance, the median rank of the top 20 golfers was 106.5 for the full PGA Tour season. Accuracy was 101. Good drive rate was 102. Going back to 2019, it was 80 for distance, 114th for accuracy, 104th for good drive rate. 2018, it was 92, 93.5, 89.5. So like there was no definitive way, which could mean it kind of actually, I guess, lends into what you're saying, where maybe off the tee doesn't matter as much here. And I think that could be a potential takeaway. But I took it to mean, and I think this also fits with the field, I'm going to go with strokes gained off the tee overall rather than distance or approach, because I think that one of the keys is just finding golfers who are overall like better this week. Like maybe it's not one archetype of golfer, but just finding better golfers. And that's why I wanted to go with off the tee overall. I also found around the green play mattering a bit more, so that is also on my list. And POA putting, of course, there too. So we wound up on the same, having similar data. I just took it a little bit different, where I decided to go with like trying to find, like I made a joke about this, just play the good golfers. But like it's kind of what I wound up doing for this week, just because neither distance nor accuracy mattered a ton. So I want to try to find golfers who are overall just a level better than the field, if that makes sense, without being too reductive.
Yeah, I do think maybe good golfers to us typically means good tee to green golfers.
Yeah.
So off the tee play usually is baked into that. But really, I mean, last year, among the top 10 golfers who gained off the tee, only 3 even made the cut. Cameron Champ led off the tee and won. So it's not like a great off the tee performance or ability is a negative. It's just, it's not enough in itself to succeed here. Obviously, when you sort by the best putters, those guys generally climb the leaderboard because they're converting, but it's really surprising because strokes gained around the green is always the least predictive of scoring on the PGA Tour, but it's much more significant here the past 2 years. So again, I don't ever usually look at it, but it's a key stat for me this week.
I mean, it could be because like you just have like a higher volume of shots around the green, because like that's what you always point out is like it doesn't matter what you do around the green because there are so few opportunities, like chances around the green. But like here, if it's 7,166 yards and a par 72, you're probably going to be around the green more often. Like maybe that's a potential explainer for it. But either way, I think that it makes sense to wind up there. So just kind of looking for golfers who can, like you said, be competent in one area and excel in another. And I think that's kind of a good way to look at things for this week. Week 1 is finally upon us, and FanDuel is back in 2020 with the Sunday Million contest once again. For just a $4 entry fee, compete to win over $3 million in total prizes, including $1 million to first place. Turning $4 into $1 million would be pretty decent for your ROI. Not too bad. Plus, if you roster the player to score the first touchdown of the slate, you will split a jackpot of $250,000. For more details, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. Eligibility restrictions apply.
I didn't want to ruin the great read you were doing, but it sounded like you said your ROI instead of ROI.
Rookie of the year, Antonio Gibson will score the first touchdown. See?
Oh yeah, my Keyshawn Vaughn Rookie of the Year bet's not looking hot.
Can you cash out? You can look into that. But I think that for past history at Silverado, as mentioned, we do actually have like a decent amount of data here because this is the 5th time they've been here, or 6th time, I guess, now. And we kind of have a good idea who could potentially do well here. The problem is there's a lot of volatility in that. Like, you could win one year and finish outside the top 50 next, which leads into Brendan Steele, who is one of the favorites for this week. 11-4. And Brandon, he's had good history here, but he's also had some bad finishes. So what do you see with Brendan Steele?
Yeah, 2-time winner at Silverado, 2016, 2017, followed those up with a 53rd and a 60th. So, I mean, anytime that can happen, it's a good reminder that course history only means so much. But his wins came with worse form than what he has now, according to Fantasy National. He's at 2.8 strokes gained per event over his past 10 events entering this 2020 or 2021 version. I'm already struggling. 2020. Okay.
I have all of my notes are from the year in which it occurred.
Okay. Mine should be, but you never know. So he was around 0 when he won, like entering. So the form, which is a huge part of looking at past history, you need to know how golfers were doing entering a specific event. Fantasy National makes that very easy on player pages, but he's gained at least 1.9 strokes from approach in his past 6 events. Is 78th around the green, 68th in POA putting. I use a 100-round sample for surface-based putting, but there isn't a single golfer in the field who's perfect, so I think we have to look pretty long and hard at a 2-time winner with great form. So Brendan Steele, $11,400 on FanDuel. Any interest?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually very close to putting Steele in my player picks just because, like you said, the form has been good. And I've used Brendan Steele in like a lot tougher fields recently. 7th in the field in approach. That's always intriguing. So I think that Steele actually is legit. And I feel like if, we're going to talk about this later, but like if I were ranking the studs in this field, I feel like Steele would be one of the top 2-ish probably for me. What about you? Are you on the same page where you're also pretty high on Steele?
Yeah, Steele is probably my favorite golfer in the 11,000 range.
Okay.
Which is, if you're not super familiar with the salaries yet, that is Phil Mickelson, Siwoo Kim, Shane Lowry, Sergio Garcia, Steele, Jordan Spieth, Emiliano Grillo, and Joel Damon. So Emiliano Grillo, Joel Damon, usually like $8,800.
Yeah. Grillo's always 86.
Yeah, it feels like. Damon's usually like 94 now. He's been better, but so like that's who I'm comparing Steele to, and I feel pretty good. There's really one golfer in that range who I would consider close, and that's Garcia, but his putting is very bad, and I am factoring that in quite a bit this week.
Yeah, I think that I have 3 guys up there. It's Steele, Shane Lowry, and Garcia. And we'll talk about that as we go along. But I think that it's not a big group, and I don't feel a lot of separation between any of them. So Steele, to me, is worthy of that salary and someone I'm interested in using for sure this week. My first past history golfer is Harold Varner III, who usually is like a value play, but he's 10-5 this week. A lot higher than we're used to seeing, but that's true for everyone. And Varner has a history of performing well at Silverado, and the stats aren't bad either. In the 5 years they've been going to the Silverado North Course, Varner has made 5 cuts, all 5 times. He has 3 top 20s in those made cuts. Last year, Varner gained 6.3 strokes tee to green. 4.8 of that came off the tee. He gained 5.4 tee to green the year before that, and that's all while actually losing strokes in approach in both those years. That could be seen as a negative. However, Varner's been really good on his approach play recently. He's 6th in the field in approach the past 50 rounds, 6 off the tee, so he has good history here. He will strike the ball well. Brandon, we know the short game woes are present, at least in the putting, so is there enough here for you to justify Varner at 10-5?
Yes. I mentioned I liked Garcia at 11-5. I'm not saying it's exactly the same situation, but Varner has been statistically a little bit better tee to green than Garcia. We know the putter is a problem for each of them. So I'm fine taking the $1,000 savings in salary to draft Varner over Garcia quite often. And Varner is perhaps per dollar my favorite play on the slate.
I think that he's in that discussion for sure. I think the 10,000 range in general is pretty good this week, which feels weird to say because like it is a lot of questionable golfers there. Yeah. But like I like Varner. I like Eric Van Rooyen a decent amount. Kind of similar concerns there. Great ball striker, concerns elsewhere. Doc Redman, similar story there. So the 10,000 range to me is actually really good. But Varner is a part of the reason it's really good. So even though it's a good range, it's not a range I typically wind up in. I think I'll wind up there more than I usually do this week. And I think that Varner will be one of the first guys I go to in that range. Would you agree with both those assessments?
Yeah, and the thing to remember with like the salaries this week is usually in most events we're getting your Justin Thomases, your Rorys, your Rahms in the 11,000 range, and then it's a drop down to like Patrick Reed and Tony Finau and golfers who like there's a pretty big gap there. The gap between like Siwoo Kim long term and some of these other golfers is not that huge. So the 10,000 range is very intriguing to me, and I think an optimal way to go is probably a little bit more balanced this week because I don't know how many of the $11,000 golfers are particularly worth it.
Yeah, like. To phrase what you said a different way is that there's a tier difference between the upper 11,000 guys and the people beneath them. I think everyone at like, I don't know. I don't want to put like 10-5 and higher is in the same tier to me. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. And that's usually not what we see.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Emiliano Grillo. We alluded to him earlier. He is 11-2 and he is in that range as well, which is shocking. But part of the reason that Grillo is there is probably because he has a strong history at Silverado. Brandon, can we overlook the putting with Emiliano Grillo because of what he's done here in the past?
So what's funny is I did a lot of this work over the weekend, just trying to look ahead. And I was like, oh, Grillo, I mean, he'll be like a mid-tier option in terms of salary, but he's 11-2, so I was way off base there. I guess I was not fully factoring in what the field looks like top to bottom, so that tells me a lot. My first instincts of what his salary should be even in this field, but I mean, he won here in 2015, which he did while losing 1.5 strokes from putting according to Fantasy National, but gained 12.7 strokes tee to green, 7.2 specifically from approach. That's like the prime time Emiliano Grillo special. That's how good a ball striker he can be. But the issue, of course, is that he's usually a horrible putter. That applies to POA as well. Bent grass is really his best surface. So it's kind of, we consider Grillo on bent grass, but never anywhere else. But I mean, he still gained tee to green in all 5 starts here since 2015, which includes 3 top 30 finishes. Did miss the cut last year, but the recent stats kind of there. 5th in approach, 13th off the tee over the past 50 rounds. Outside the top 110 around the green and putting. So he does not fit the great ball striker with non-terrible short game that I'm looking for. So I don't think I could forgive myself if I roster Emiliano Grillo at 11,200 on FanDuel. So I think I'm out.
Yeah.
Are you the same there?
Well, I mean, like just compared to the guys around him, like Joel Damon has similar concerns with the short game, but his are not as drastic.
Yeah.
And he's just as good with his ball striking. So like you could just go with Damon at 11,000. Varner, he's like not good at the short game, but he's not as drastically terrible as Grillo. Kind of the same thing. Van Rooyen. So I think that if I'm going to go at that archetype, I'm going to go at one of them instead of Grillo. And I'm okay going at those archetypes. Like Damon wouldn't grade out super well for me on the salary perspective, but like Van Rooyen and Varner do. So I'm okay going at that profile, but I think I'd rather go with golfers who I think are better able to have spike weeks in 2020. So I think that's why I'm probably leaning away from Grillo. I don't know if I'll wind up with any there.
Yeah, I mean, if I compare like his top 10 odds in my simulations to his salary, that like value ratio puts him like 60th. I think he's probably he's just very overpriced.
Yeah. Makes sense given the course history. I can see why people would why that would lead to his being high salary, but we'll pass. So Grillo is a lock to win this weekend.
And he's 29-1.
Yeah, so there we go. I want to talk about Chesson Hadley because he is not in the stud range. He is someone I've definitely used at $9,000, even in good fields. So seeing him here is interesting given the strength of this field this weekend. Hadley has a pair of missed cuts in 4 tries at Silverado. One of them, though, was in 2015, so a long time ago, and the other was in 2018. In the 2018 event, he actually gained 3.6 strokes tee to green, but missed the cut because of putting. In the 2 made cuts for Hadley at this course, he has finished 23rd and 3rd. He gained 5.4 tee to green last year and 6.8 in 2017. So his tee to green play has been really good here. And Hadley, over a larger sample, is solid on POA. He is 41st there the past 50 rounds or past 100 rounds. The ball striking numbers are decent, and Hadley is a value play. So I'm kind of in on Chesson Hadley, Brandon. Are you as well?
I wasn't, but you may have talked me into him. The POA splits are good. We know at best what you're getting with Chesson Hadley, and that's some good iron play. The around the green play is always horrible, it feels like, for Hadley, but field leader in birdie rate, or birdie or better gained, I should say, over the past 50 rounds. 6th in opportunities gained, which is basically birdie chances from Fantasy National. So it's actually 8th in my stats model. My win sims don't love him, but they definitely don't hate him. My win sims are basically very, very, very flat this week. So I could definitely see that.
Chesson Hadley, 100% exposure. What could go wrong? We're all in on Chesson Hadley for this weekend. He'll be in the player picks too, because I think that I think he's one of my favorite plays of the week. You were talking about Varner being your favorite. I think that Hadley is like salary considered probably in that range for me. I'm not sure if I would necessarily put him first, but he's going to be like if I were to fill out a cash game roster, which I do because we play our weekly head-to-head, I think Hadley's very likely to wind up in that. Let's change things up here and talk about current form golfers who have been doing well recently. And Siwoo Kim, we joked about him being the favorite. And he's 11-7, which is super high salary. But with that said, we had, or at least I had, some interest in Siwoo Kim before this. I was talking about how his approach play was getting better. We know he can putt at times. We know the off the tee play can be good. So I don't think it's like it's interesting that he's the favorite, but it's not as if he's like a trash golfer, and he's been getting a lot better recently. So what do you see with Siwoo Kim, Brandon?
Yeah, so he's gained strokes tee to green in 5 straight events, including tough fields like the PGA and the Northern Trust. As far as the irons go, they've been pretty hot. At least 3.8 strokes gained in 4 of his past 5 events. He is a negative POA putter, but he has played the weekend in 7 straight events where there was a cut. So been making cuts, which is usually not something I feel like I can bank on with Siwoo Kim. Over the past 24 rounds, he is 2nd in the field in strokes gained tee to green. He is 22nd over the past 50 rounds. So more recent form, better there in that department. Safeway form, pretty non-existent. Was cut in 2015, 49th in 2019, but it's not super relevant to me. He's got a pretty long list of top 10 finishes. We know he can come out of nowhere and win. This would be less of an out of nowhere win because he is the betting favorite. So also Siwoo Kim always pops around the green, which is again, weirdly something that I'm valuing this week. So I usually shy away from Siwoo Kim, but there's been some consistency. There's been upside from Siwoo Kim. So I'm not out on him. I just don't know if he is worth 11,700 on FanDuel. So what do you see with Siwoo Kim?
Yeah, I think in a vacuum, Siwoo Kim makes sense. However, with Kuchar withdrawing, like Siwoo Kim's going to be popular, right? Like that's going to be a thing that happens.
Well, he's the betting favorite, and he is now the second highest salaried golfer behind.
People
just
aren't going to use Phil
Mickelson.
Mickelson, I wouldn't think.
I
Right?
think people will use Phil after what he
Okay.
did on the Champions Tour.
He was like,
That's not even a joke.
He was like 2-1 to win that event, and then he just kind of ran away with it. What a great thing about speed to just get bored and go win a PGA Tour Champions event. I think that Kim in a vacuum makes sense, but I think Kim at high popularity in what I think is a pretty volatile field is a little bit scary. So I think I'd rank him below. Once I consider that, I would rank him below Steele, Lowry, and Garcia. So I think that Kim makes sense, but I might not wind up getting there just because I'm really wary of any high popularity golfer this week, given that it's a pretty volatile field. So it's not Kim's profile specifically that pushes me off. It's more so the wariness I have around using a popular golfer, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we've been saying this field isn't necessarily great top to bottom, but the higher you spend on some of these uncertain golfers, again, it's not 11-7 for like Justin Thomas. It's 11-7 for Siwoo Kim. Then you're digging into look, I'm fine with the 8,000 range, so I don't want to make it sound like there are, no golfers below 9,000 who are worth rostering, but
7,000's got some studs.
Yeah, I don't feel that.
You will.
Okay, but you're just not necessarily like his win equity is not even that high.
Yeah.
So I think it's better to go a little bit more balanced this week. So I think just for that reason, from like a process lineup building standpoint, I can't really commit to playing Siwoo Kim.
Well, to be more balanced, you could drop down $400 and use Jordan Spieth instead. So let's have a very similar discussion about Jordan Spieth, because in most situations, Spieth is an easy avoid. And he may wind up being that this week, but I kind of feel like we have to discuss him when he's 11-3 in a weird field. So he's at least worth discussing here. Spieth's approach play has been truly solid recently. For the past 5 events, he has gained on approach each time. He's averaged 2.3 on approach per event in that span. That's in addition to his really impressive short game. The problem is that the off-the-tee play is still pretty wretched. Spieth has lost there in 5 straight and 9 of the past 11, and it seems like it's getting worse. So maybe we can downplay off-the-tee play this week, in which case Spieth would get a bump up. But even in this weakened field, I still don't find myself being particularly drawn to Jordan Spieth. How about you, Brandon? What are your thoughts on Jordan Spieth at 11-3 in a weird field?
This is like just unthinkable that Spieth's just kind of a guy in this field. But I think it's like the right way to go about it. Like you said, the irons are there. The off the tee play is not. And again, off the tee play is not something that is super important to me. I do think this is the kind of event that he needs to play in more and just get some wins. But I just can't. It's been so long since, and it hasn't really even been that long, but it feels like it's been so long since we've seen Jordan Spieth just super collected and maybe clubbing down and hitting fairways and using the irons to get close. And then, obviously the putter, his around the green play is usually pretty good as well. So this really fits like what Jordan Spieth's next win should be. But I just don't really feel like it's coming. The stats are there, but they're not there enough to feel like, oh, you just play Jordan Spieth at 11-3 and feel great about it. So I really want to track his popularity. I think he's a really good tournament play because if Jordan Spieth comes back, or if Jordan Spieth is just a little bit better than what Jordan Spieth's done, he can like contend in this field. So I'm really intrigued. But as far as anything resembling like a cash game or a smaller tournament goes, I don't really see it. So that's kind of where I am, if that makes sense.
So I was, oh man, sorry. I just pulled a fan share and like there hasn't been a lot of discussion of golf yet this week because obviously the Monday event. I kind of expected Spieth to be near the top of the tags, and does he even have a tag?
He has 2.
Okay,
so he's tied for 20th right now.
I'm frightened because the very low salary golfer I was interested in is tied for second in tags. This is going to be terrible. We'll talk about that later. But
you gotta start wearing your tinfoil. That way people can't read your mind.
I'm pretty sure it's not because I wrote him down on our podcast. I'm just going to go out on the limb and say that one. I kind of expected Spieth to be popular. That may still wind up happening because, again, there hasn't been a lot of discussion around this slate. I think that, like, if he's going to go totally under the radar, then I could see myself potentially taking a swing at him because I'm okay letting popularity play more of a role in dictating where I go than usual. But, like, I'm still hesitant to think that'll happen just because, like, Jordan Spieth is a name in a field lacking in names.
Yeah. I mean, I think what it comes down to is we just need to make sure that Jordan Spieth isn't on, like, 40% of rosters.
Yeah.
If he's, like, he's going to be probably, I don't know, 25. I don't really know if the popularity is going to shake out this week. I should have pulled up last year's event. Yeah. But, I mean, you're not going to get Jordan Spieth at 5% in terms of draft percentage.
Although even last year would be tough because I think Justin Thomas was in that field, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think
so. Like, you're not going to get a good read on what. Thomas finished 4th. You're not going to get a good read on. Like, Adam Hadwin was in that event. I was trying to list off other people, and then it just kind of went blank. So it was basically JT. JT must have been like 5 or 6 to 1. He probably wasn't, but like, my goodness. Like, even that won't be indicative of what to expect this week because there is no JT in this field. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Let's talk about some more mid-range guys, starting off with Denny McCarthy, because you talked about valuing short game this week, and who could benefit more than that, than Denny McCarthy. $9,300. What do you see with McCarthy for this week?
I just see a big putter when I see Denny McCarthy.
Like, literally like a big putter? Is it just physically larger than most putters, intimidating putter?
It's like a human-sized putter holding another putter.
Wow.
That's
welcome to week 1 NFL.
Welcome to the Safeway. Yeah.
Sleep is rare.
Yeah, that too.
Brandon's hallucinating about putters, holding other putters.
Yeah.
Sorry, what about Denny McCarthy holding a smaller Denny McCarthy to putt? What about that?
That could work.
I like that one.
I mean, me and Denny, we have a back and forth.
Oh, yeah. He's in the same group chat as you and Dustin Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, if this is a putting exhibition, which the data kind of says it has been the past 2 years, we have to consider looking at Denny McCarthy, even on POA, which is his worst putting surface. But even with that, he's 16th in the field over the past 100 rounds in strokes gained on POA. He's 50th in fairways gained as well, which again is something that I am factoring in. It's never bad to hit fairways. It just usually is not super predictive of, things beyond that. But I'm looking for any positives I can with Denny McCarthy. But he's actually, I mean, we've seen some strong iron play to get him to some good finishes lately. At least good for McCarthy. 32nd at the 3M Open and the Barracuda. 58th at the PGA Championship, 9th at the Wyndham, 49th at the Northern Trust. But that gives him 6 straight made cuts. Now, he is a negative tee to green golfer, like adjusted for field in 2020, but he's just an insanely good putter. 2 missed cuts at the Safeway while losing strokes tee to green in each, if you are factoring in course history. But, I mean, $9,300, elite putter. He's been making cuts. His irons are showing life. So, can you get behind Denny McCarthy?
Probably not. But it's also because
I don't hears about this.
I know. Sorry. Just let him know now that I've been crossed off the list. I think that there are other golfers in that range I like more, who I can reasonably expect to finish well, and they like, I know this is always the discussion of like, do we go with the short game or do we go with the ball striking? I even though the short game is more important this week, I'm still inclined to go with the ball striking, which is why Luke List is next up on my current form discussion. So let's talk about him. We can compare him to McCarthy because they are wildly different. List is someone I've been hesitant to buy back in on recently, despite the improved play. But in this field at $9,500, he may finally get me back on the boat. In 9 events since the end of the layoff, List has gained on approach 6 times. He gained 5.4 at the PGA Championship. He actually gained 8.6 tee to green in that event, and the driving has obviously been very good. The problem is that he peed all that away. Like in the PGA Championship, he gained 8.6 tee to green, but he finished 51st because he lost 7.5 strokes putting. Mm-hmm. He lost 7.7 the week after that. He is gone. Like Luke List has reached his fully actualized form. He has reached peak Luke List. The good thing here is that POA is List's least bad surface, and he was 4th here in 2018. 2 other made cuts. So, Brandon, are you going the List route or the McCarthy route if you find yourself in this mid-range?
There is a golfer priced with a salary right between them who's kind of a mix of both who I like, and that's Taylor Gooch.
Yeah.
Now, I'm still more inclined to play someone like Luke List because if you can gain 8.6 strokes tee to green at the PGA in that field, you could, in theory, dominate the Safeway Open.
Yeah.
Denny McCarthy's never going to gain. I mean, I don't even know what his most strokes gained tee to green ever has been, but probably not that many.
Yeah.
Let me see here. 4.6 at the Houston Open.
That's his most?
Yeah.
So List doubled that in a major.
Yeah. But Denny McCarthy's never lost 13. His worst putting performance is 2.4 lost.
Oh my gosh.
But he has gained 8.8 or more 4 times. So, I mean, he can be as good tee to green. Like,
I think that List has the best odds of pulling a Grillo. Like you were talking about, a Grillo did well despite losing strokes putting. I could see List, I'm not going to say win. We don't use that word with Luke List. But, like, I could see List pulling a Grillo and having a good finish despite a bad putting week. Like, that's kind of why I'm inclined to go there.
Yeah, I mean, McCarthy's gained more than 2 strokes tee to green in 5 of 68 measured events, according to Fantasy National. So, like, I mean, in every DFS sport, we talk about upside.
Yeah.
McCarthy has some upside because of his putter, but if he's not putting lights out, like his top 10s all come with like 5+ strokes gain putting. He really just, and 2 of those were with his like 4+ tee to green. You just kind of have to prefer Luke List if you're seeking like a top 10, I think.
I agree that Gooch is interesting. I also like good golly, Cam Tringali in that same range. This isn't a bad range. I think this is why balance is potentially more interesting this week because, like, I don't mind this range, and I like the 10,000 golfers quite a bit. So I think the balance fits a lot, and List is someone I think I would include in that balance build too.
Yeah, I don't mind the mid 8,000 range, but the mid 9s, the low 9s are pretty like relative to the rest of the field. They stand out. So I don't think this is a week where you're like, well, you know, anybody can win, so just punt with a bunch of like minimum salary golfers. That's not really what that means. So I think balance is going to be the right way to go. Yeah. Problematically, we're looking at like 5 to 7 options at each range, so the odds you hit on those are going to be tough. So I would say probably pick a range to focus on. Be like, I want to pick 3 guys in the mid 9,000 range, and then I'll rotate in the more expensive guys or the cheaper guys. But I mean, there are ways to kind of get some leverage. Just don't play everyone and mix and match too much.
I think that is a correct way to view this field. Let's take a look at what the bookmakers are saying about this field. Again, Siwoo Kim, the favorite at FanDuel Sportsbook. He is 16-1. Then you have Brendan Steele and Phil Mickelson at 20-1. Shane Lowry is 22-1, followed by three golfers who are 27-1. Those guys are Joel Damon, Jordan Spieth, and Sergio Garcia. Emiliano Grillo and Harold Varner III are 29-1. And then Chez Reavie and Eric Van Rooyen round out the top group at 31-1. So Brandon, straight up, who should be the favorite this week?
Probably Garcia.
Okay.
I know the putting's bad, but he should be able to be so good tee to green relative to this field that he deserves it, I think. If not, it's going to be Steele for me.
Okay.
What about you?
I think it's those two, but also Shane Lowry. I'm going to talk about Shane Lowry in the player picks, but his ball striking has been getting a lot better recently. He had like a long lull after he got that win last year where like, I don't know if it was just hangover induced or what, but like he had a very long stretch where he just did nothing, but he's been kind of rounding back into form recently. So I'm interested in buying into that. So I would say it's between Steele, Lowry, and Garcia. I think because of the putting for Garcia being as scary as it is, I'm okay putting him third on that list. But I think that all three are kind of, in that discussion for me as being guys. But I also think this is part of the reason why I'm more okay going balanced and just passing over all of them. Like if you had one tournament lineup, Brandon, would you include any of those three in it, do you think?
Probably not. I would want to maximize the odds I hit the winner. And so I'd be more inclined to take a bunch of golfers hovering around that 10,000 range.
Yep. I think that's the way I'd play that too. In a similar vein, like, are you comfortable playing cash games in this field? I know you play against me for our head-to-head, which I will probably win. Not after the last week, but, previously. Are you comfortable playing cash games? Because I'm not. I will just say straight up that I'm not. Are you?
Yeah, because you can build a strong, balanced lineup. It's not like that doesn't exist. It's
Right.
not like nobody knows what to expect here. There's a little less certainty at the top for sure, like a lot less certainty at the top, but you can then build a really balanced lineup and you're not missing out on spending up for these uncertain golfers in the 11,000 range. So there might actually be a substantial edge if, everyone else is going to pay up for Phil or pay up for Spieth. And then the rest of their lineup is a little bit weaker. So I do think that there is still an edge to be had, but I would probably still allocate more of my typical bankroll to a tournament.
Okay, so
or tournament lineups.
Less bankroll allocated towards cash games than usual, but you're still okay with cash games?
Yeah, because again, I don't think it's completely random. It's open to a lot more golfers, but I don't think would have a substantially lower shot of getting a 6 of 6 lineup through here than you would anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, if people are inclined to spend up like top dollar, high salary for these golfers who probably are only there because somebody has to be, I think you can probably get some leverage by spending down and building a balanced lineup.
I think that thought process makes sense. I'm just not comfortable enough with the field. Like there's enough randomness there. I'd rather just fully embrace tournaments for this.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Like I get what you're saying, and what you're saying makes sense, but you're also, between the two of us are more familiar with the non-name golfers than I am, so it's not going to suit my strengths, whereas it could suit your strengths really well.
I mean, like again, you could build a lineup between the 9 and 10K range.
Oh yeah.
These golfers, and
right. No, we're going to talk about lower guys in a second, but I think that play to your strengths. If you are someone who knows the non-elite golfers really well, maybe this is a great week for cash games. If you are more of a casual golf fan who will listen to podcasts and stuff like that, and like you don't know them as well, maybe it's a better week to shy away from cash games for this week. Which lower salary golfers have odds that stand out to you here?
I mean, there are a lot. I usually try to make the cutoff like 9,000, but I don't want to gloss over a pretty long range of golfers in the at 94 and below, because we have Carlos Ortiz at 50 to 1. He's 9,100 on FanDuel. Love Carlos Ortiz. Denny McCarthy is 55. Taylor Gooch, Charlie Hoffman, Maverick McNeely, Brendan Grace, Charles Schwartzel, all 60. JB Holmes, Patrick Rogers, Kyle Stanley, Troy Merritt, Harry Higgs, 65. So, I mean, and if you just trust the posted win odds, the win equity is not terrible for a lot of these golfers in the low 9,000 range. So again, I do think there's there can be an edge in a cash game build where you're not going for any long shots unnecessarily, because you do not have to do that this week.
Yep, I think that it makes sense. I'm assuming Ortiz is probably pretty high on your list at 50 to 1 and $9,100.
Oh, you know it.
Okay, we'll talk about him later on. I just peeked ahead on the player picks. We will have more Carlos Ortiz discussion coming later. Weather for this week, nada. I would note that the wind increases throughout the day. So if you're playing like single round slates, make note of that. But like from a full tournament perspective, nothing really to note. Obviously, there's some funkiness out in California, so hopefully everything is okay there. But for the golf event for this week, things are all right. So let's dive into our player picks for the Safeway Open. Brandon, in the upper tier, who are you targeting on FanDuel this weekend?
I'm going to go with Brendan Steele at $11,400. Talked about Steele as a winner here. It's going to bump up his popularity for sure, but I like the recent stats more than the wins. He's 7th in approach over the past 50 rounds. He's not terrible at anything else. Over a 100-round sample on POA, he's 67th in putting. That doesn't take me out of it. I don't love kind of field average in putting, but definitely good enough for me based on the ball striking. So again, it's genuinely less about the wins and more about the current form for Steele.
And if you have someone who has done well at the course in the past, but you're talking them up because of their current form, that is reassuring, because there is objectively value to having seen a course and having done well there before. It's just that it's so hard to bank on that and know what the form was. But when the form is good, then I think that matters a bit more. So that does matter for Steele. I'm going to put Shane Lowry first still, because I know it's weird, but Lowry's play has been ticking back up for pretty good amount now. He's gained at least 2.4 in approach in 5 of the past 6 events. He's set to finish 6th at the WGC St. Jude, 23rd at the Wyndham, and the off the tee play hasn't been as good, and he's merely a neutral putter on POA, but he's not going to kill you in any one stats. He can perform well in tough fields, and this is not that. So I kind of think that Lowry at 11.6 is pretty easy to justify. Brandon, you seem lower on Lowry than I am. What pushes you away from him personally?
It's just an overall salary discussion.
Okay.
I get relative to the field, Shane Lowry should probably cost $11,600, but I don't think Shane Lowry should ever cost $11,600 based on what I can guarantee from Shane Lowry. So usually I see higher cut odds, cut projection odds for golfers in this range. I don't really see it from a lot of golfers priced where they are in the 11,000 range. So I'm just inclined to bump down. And look, I like Steele, like I said that, but I view him as a little bit safer than Shane Lowry. So I'm not going to talk you out of Shane Lowry. I just am going to limit my exposure to the 11,000 range. And I still like Garcia enough where I would put him above Lowry because of what he can do tee to green.
So if you do bump down from that 11,000 range, who are you targeting in that 10,000 range?
It is going to be Harold Varner the third at 10,000.
Okay, I thought I was like, oh, okay, the first one. Okay, not sure what kind of golf shape he's in, but
best statistical player in the field for me. He leads in strokes gained tee to green. He's top 8 in strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach. Really hard to hate that. The putting is vital for me this week. He's not there with the flat stick. which is easy to hate, but he's 32nd around the green. So, I mean, literally like tee to green, he's very, very good for this field. POA, his best surface. So I'm always going to worry about Harold Varner's putter, but put him on POA and it's a little bit less. Now, he has missed 3 of his past 5 cuts, so I get it. But again, what I'm stressing is there's not a single can't miss, like a single just pay up for Justin Thomas this week and figure it out from there. That doesn't exist this week. So I'd rather chase the upside of that tee to green performance and pray for neutral putting with Varner, who is priced not in the 11,000 range, but in the mid 10,000 range.
I like Varner a lot too. I would say in the 10,000 range, he's my favorite. So I think I agree with you where, like you said, he's your favorite salary considered golfer in the field. Might not be number 1 for me, but he is in the top 6, I would say. Another guy I want to highlight here in the 10,000 range, which again, I do like quite a bit, is Doc Redman. Redman kind of seems like the type of golfer who could really thrive during the swing season. We tend to target super young golfers there. Redman is that. And there won't be as many swing events this year with the 2 majors, but this does fit that category. I think it's a good time to get Doc shares. He is 24th in the field off the tee and 8th in approach the past 50 rounds. The crazy hot approach play that he had right out of the layoff hasn't always held, but he still had the spike weeks. He has upside. If I'm not playing cash games, I can bank on that upside. And we saw Redmond gain 10.7 strokes tee to green at the Wyndham. Doesn't have safety, but he does have upside. Redmond's probably not a good cash game play. Like, I'd rather go Varner there. I'd go Eric Van Rooyen over Redmond as well in the same range. But I do like Redmond as a tournament play at 10-8. Brandon, does Redmond do anything for you?
He does. I always like Doc. Very volatile with the missed cuts, 3 of the past 5. But again, that word upside, top 20 finishes, top 10 finishes are there for him. He's just really bad around the green, and that's not something I want to ignore entirely. But statistically, I should be more okay with bad around the green play than bad putting, because putting is just significantly more important. So I was going to say I kind of like Chez Reavie more than Doc, but based on the fact that I should prioritize putting over around the green play, I think I might flip to Doc.
I think Chez is in play, right?
Yeah.
So I would say Damon is an option at 11,000. Van Rooyen, Varner, Redmond, all those guys are golfers I would give a really decent amount of consideration to, which I guess like kind of just gives further value to saying I'm going to go balance this week. I also, again, like the 9,000 range a good amount, especially the mid to high 9,000 range. So let's move there, Brandon, with our mid salary plays. Who stands out to you in the 9,000-ish range?
Well, I'm going to go low 9,000s here. Taylor Gooch, $9,400.
That's mid. Mid is like 93 to 97. Low is like 92 to 9,000.
Well, you said you like the high nines, and my 2 golfers are 94 and 91.
Taylor Gooch specifically is 94. He's a mid-range play. Don't lie. Get out of here.
Okay. I mean, they're all mid-range plays.
I will not have this offense on my podcast, our podcast.
Okay. I'm just going to talk about Taylor Gooch and be happy.
Sure.
But he's like high-key good for this field.
Yep.
35th in approach, 16th in putting over the past 50 rounds on PGA Tour, and over a larger sample on POA specifically, he's 22nd in strokes gained putting. He's made 5 of 7 cuts. His missed cuts were at the Memorial and the PGA, so a little more forgivable there. 4 top 25s in that stretch. Was really bad at the BMW, but the larger sample says to like Taylor Gooch plenty at $9,400, and that's what I'm going to do.
And I think that there are like 4 golfers I like a really good amount in that mid 9,000 range. I like Luke List. Talking about Cam Tringali. Taylor Gooch is on that list as well. So it's a good tier, and Gooch is a part of the reason it is a good tier. But right above that, I also like Henrik Norlander. Norlander is another guy who can have spike weeks, and that's kind of what I'm looking for here. He has gained at least 3.1 in approach in 5 of the past 8 events. He gained 8.3 in one of those and 5.8 in another. And in that time, Norlander has 3 top 25 finishes. He was 6th in one, 12th in another, and Norlander 40th off the tee, 19th in approach the past 50 rounds. And I think he seems well-rounded enough to potentially do well here. I've talked about the value of going balanced, and when you go balanced, like you build around Harold Varner III, you can get back up to a guy like Norlander at $9,800 if you want to. Brandon, is that something you want to do? Would Norlander be on your list if you were to have the salary?
I still prefer Gooch, I think, straight up. I'm probably going to play Luke List. Norlander does it for me, but not enough where I feel like I need to scramble to get up to Norlander from Gooch and a few other golfers in this range, including List, Carlos Ortiz, who I'll talk about in a second. So maybe I'm too low on him, but I feel good with the mid 9,000 priced Taylor Gooch.
Good. Proud of you. Good growth there. Low range, low 9,000 range, legitimately low 9,000 range. Tell me why you like Carlos Ortiz.
Well, he isn't going to draw attention from people just looking at the recent form because he's, has 3 cuts. It was 25th at the BMW. Those were his results in August. But over a larger 50-round sample, Ortiz 22nd around the green, 38th in putting, 52nd in approach, which definitely not elite in approach, but not terrible. He also has like a penchant for putting on POA. He's 6th in the field.
Penchant for putting on POA.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote it and it sounded better.
No, I thought it sounded cool.
Yeah, but 6th in the field in strokes gained putting on POA average over everyone's past 100 rounds whenever they exist. He has 65, so it's definitely not a small sample for me. So I think Ortiz will probably just get glossed over. So I think Ortiz is a pretty safe pivot.
Yeah. Ortiz works really well if you downplay off the tee play. He's 108th off the tee the past 50 rounds, but he's really good everywhere else. And I mean everywhere, which is really valuable. So we both talked at the top about how like off the tee play may not matter as much. And like that plays really well for Ortiz. Ortiz at $9,100. Like if you have him at 91 and you plug in Eric Van Rooyen and you're at 10,000 for the rest of your lineup, like you can get having one Ortiz really helps a balanced build. So I think Ortiz is a really good play. I'd agree. I find no reason to push back on this. Disappointing.
I mean, even if you did, I wasn't going to hear it. So
fair enough. So let's talk about Cameron Tringali. Try to get some more disagreement in here. Tringali, kind of like Ortiz.
Terrible.
Not
pick.
great
Worst.
off the tee. Yeah, terrible.
Terrible.
Get out of here. He's 88th off the tee, but he's solid enough everywhere else to excel. Specifically, the approach is nuts. Tringali actually leads the field in approach the past 50 rounds. Also a decent POA putter. He's 50th there the past 100 rounds. He used that plus approach to play and finish 3rd at the 3M Open. So he has a path to upside. He has also played this course 5 times. So even with not the greatest results, Tringali does know the course. And he checks enough boxes for me at $9,500 to be my player pool. I'm not sure where I'd rank him relative to like a Luke List type guy. I think that Taylor Gooch is in there too. Where does Tringali sit for you, or is he not in that discussion?
Between those 3 specifically, he'd probably be 2nd for me behind Gooch.
Ahead of List.
Yeah, just because List is so
fair. I can't fair.
so abysmal as a putter. Tringali never gains strokes off the tee. So if we can downplay it, I mean, not never, but very, very rarely. I like that. And the POA splits are good for him. So basically, if you give me someone who's good with an iron in his hand and can putt on POA, you got to take a look at those guys this week, and that's Tringali. So I would say behind Gooch, but definitely a mid-range target.
I think there is a way where you can do like an archetype stack this week where you load up on golfers who may not be great off the tee but can do stuff elsewhere. Maybe that's where you get yourself to a Jordan Spieth lineup. Ches Reavie would fit that type of build. Carlos Ortiz fits that. Tringali fits that. So I think like there is merit to stacking archetypes and stacking golfers who, again, aren't that great off the tee, maybe not like hideous off the tee, but like can do really well elsewhere. So I would say that as being an angle you could potentially play for this week. Not stacking tee times or anything like that, but stacking archetypes and maybe golfers who can do well in a field where off the tee play may not matter as much.
Yeah, and Carlos Ortiz always reminds me of Jordan Spieth.
What?
Well, they remind me of each other when I'm watching like PGA Tour live. I'm like, I feel like
are you turning on Carlos Ortiz? Because it feels like to me like you're besmirching Carlos Ortiz's name, knowing your sentiment around other golfers.
No, I mean, okay, over the past 50 rounds, Spieth is 99th off the tee, Ortiz is 106th. Approach 60th and 52nd, around the green 16th and 22nd, putting 62nd and 38th, with Ortiz being better. There.
I'm just saying, I don't know why you decided to speak ill of Carlos Ortiz in this way. I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't hate Jordan Spieth as much as
I'll let him know in our group chat about this, just so you're aware.
Oh, you got to introduce me to Carlos. He's one of the few. I mean, despite loving him, he's one of the few golfers I don't have a back and forth with.
Exactly. Let's move down to the lower tier. Actually, I didn't look at your player picks before this. You used two golfers I considered having in mind. So we might actually agree in this range. Who do you like as a value play for this week?
Well, I think I have to change these picks, but for now, it's Adam Schenk at 8,600. 14th off the tee, above average in the other 3 strokes gain stats relative to the field. So, again, I'm looking for either like a ball striker who can putt, a really good short game guy who's, ball striking isn't, terrible. He fits whichever it is, all-around golfer, again, adjusted for price. 58th in POA putting, so not a complete avoid in that regard. He's gained on approach in 5 straight events, so I don't think I have to spend down a ton, and I think I'll probably cap it at like 85-ish, 84. Definitely not going below that, but Schenk does draw my interest.
Yeah, I think Schenk's a good play. I do like him. My favorite value play is Chesson Hadley, and technically I'm double dipping by putting him in the course history and player picks, but it's our podcast, our rules, so whatever. Hadley 50th or top hit 50 in the field in the 3 big categories for me. 49th off the tee, 17th in approach, 41st in POA putting. Hasn't finished better than 23rd since play picked back up, but he has the necessary components to do that, and this field is pretty weak. So I'm going to throw Hadley out there at $9,000. Brandon, we have not heard your favorite value play. Is it Schenk, or if you could pick anyone $9,000 or lower, who would be your pick there?
Probably Schenk.
Okay.
I know I messaged you when I saw Wesley Bryan at 8,600. I'm in on Wesley Bryan, but not as certain about that. He's 9th in approach, 12th around the green among the field. Just can't hit a driver. He's outside the top 120 in distance and accuracy gained. A big concern, too, is potential rust. He has just 1 start since July when he was 31st at the Wyndham. So definitely not a flawless play, but his irons, when adjusted for field, according to Data Golf, put him near the top of the entire world. Yeah, he's actually first.
What?
Yeah, it's 7 events, so keep that in mind. But I mean, if you just kind of look at what he's done, it's impressive enough to say in this field, sure. I mean, it's coming from 4 measured rounds or 4 measured events in 2020, but he's 9th over the past 50 rounds. It's not like it's not something that he can do. So I mean, I like Wesley Bryan, but if you're a little uncertain about that, there are again other golfers I think in play. Martin Laird's 86, Tom Hoagie's 85, same with Aaron Wise, Jonathan Vegas is 84, Pat Perez is 82. So I like Schenk and Bryan more than them, but I do think that there are other plays if you're really trying to play Siwoo Kim, play Phil Mickelson, which I don't think I'm going to do.
Yeah, Laird is another guy with a lot of rust concerns because I don't think he's played since the end of the layoff. So that could be a thing. but I'd agree that some of those guys are interesting too. I mentioned before that there was a golfer below $8,000 who I kind of like. Then I pulled up FanShare and saw that he was tied for second in tags and got really frightened. But I am interested in Chris Baker. Baker is 34 years old. He's coming up from the Korn Ferry Tour, and that's not a great archetype. We tend to want to target golfers who are younger coming up from the Korn Ferry Tour who may have figured something out and may be rising. Baker's not that, but when he's played on the PGA Tour, he's actually had some pretty decent performances. He has played 3 events in the PGA Tour side of things since the end of the COVID layoff. He's gained at least 3.3 strokes in approach in all 3 of those, including 6.5 at the 3M Open. Baker is not super long off the tee, but he can put it on the fairway. I think both he and Matt Neesmith are options below $8,000. I'm willing to take a swing at Baker at $7,700. Again, I'm probably not going to be doing this very often, just for full transparency, because I am pushing more towards a balanced build. But if I just want to pepper that 10,000 range, Baker lets me do that. So I am interested. Brandon, this is not the tight end for the former tight end for the Jets, by the way. I think I had Chris Baker football cards growing up. This is not that guy, just for clarity. Okay. But does Baker do anything for you?
I thought this was like a John Smoltz situation.
Yes. Tony Romo.
No, I'm really not particularly interested in Chris Baker. I don't want to get careless, and I feel like rostering unknowns is a bit careless to me. I don't have a good read on Chris Baker. All I know is last year in the swing season, a lot of missed cuts. I'm not going to do it. I want you to do it against me in our head-to-head, but
taking risks is the name of the game for me this week because no one's safe. So let's embrace this volatility, baby.
But if he's going to be popular,
then abandon ship immediately. I'd go Matt Neesmith over him if that were to happen in a heartbeat. But I also, again, probably won't be down in this range all that often just because I prefer a balanced build.
Yeah, I don't see it enough, so I'm sorry if I spoiled things for you.
Yeah. Chris Baker, the Jets tight end, is disappointed listening to this too. Sad. So
I didn't know you had a back and forth with him.
Oh yeah, again, he and Carlos Ortiz in the same chat. It's the same thing. But I think that if Chris Baker were to not be popular this week, I would have lineups with him to just load up on that HV3 Van Rooyen, HV3 EVR. How many different abbreviations can we make? I would do that to load up on that tier because he allows me to do so. And I'm probably going to do it because why not? Let's see what happens. Let's have some fun this week. Because the Safeway Open's a weird field. Let's embrace the volatility and get a little weird.
Yeah, I think that's a viable way to go. But I don't want to embrace too much unknown for the sake of being different.
Just don't cry to me on Sunday when Chris Baker's hoisting that trophy, baby. Win picks for this week. You obliterated me in our head-to-head. You had a lineup that was quite good. I could not compete with that. So you have regrets, I know.
Yeah.
But that means I know that you're sad because it could have been good if you had put it in different contests. But at least you get to pick first for our win picks, which matters way more. So clearly you're the true winner here.
Yeah, I mean, you need to tell me what the cutoffs are.
It's 50-1. I'm not making this go longer than 50-1.
Okay.
And you can pick anyone at the top end.
Well, then I
truly don't care.
I'll take my boy Carlos Ortiz at 50-1.
I thought you were going to go Steele. Okay, well, I know you don't want my top end guy, so there's no point. I'm going to take Shane Lowry at the top end. Actually, no, let's go HV3. Let's have some fun. Let's boogie. I'd rather do HV3 than Lowry anyway. So I'm going to go HV3 at the top end. Who do you want? Steele, I assume?
Yeah, I would go Steele.
Okay, so you have Steele and Ortiz. I have HV3 and Luke List. Just need one of those two guys to not suck on the greens this week. Well, and then we're eating shrimp, baby, if that happens.
Well, I mean, you got Dustin Johnson last week, so...
I forgot. Did that break the tie, or are we tied again now?
It broke a tie. There's a little asterisk by that.
No, there's no asterisk. This is what you get for losing our bobble hat. If you won the bobble hat, you could have had Dustin Johnson.
Yeah. So
Sorry for being better.
It's nice. It's nice to know that you needed some strokes to pick up a win over me. But
Didn't you win by more than 2 strokes anyway? Or at least I actually don't know what the final margin was. I know Xander started at like 3 under or whatever, but like that's irrelevant. DJ would have gone harder if he didn't have a 16 stroke lead to open Monday.
DJ does not go hard.
No, DJ always goes hard. How dare you? I'm the winner. HV3 and Luke List both will add to that total this week. A playoff between those two. They will both shoot a 5 on a par 4 to open up the playoff because they can't putt. And it's going to be great, but they're both going to win. So you heard it here first. You have Steele and Ortiz. That is all that we have for this week. Brandon, any final thoughts for you before we close up shop?
Get weird, but but have a purpose for getting weird.
And that purpose should be to use Chris Baker. I agree. I think that the bigger thing for me is go balance this week. Embrace the fact that like there's not a huge gap between the upper tier guys and the second tier golfers. Embrace that and take advantage of a week where it actually does make a lot of sense to go balanced for the Safeway Open. That is all the time that we have for today. But as mentioned, a lot of stuff coming up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed and on the FanDuel YouTube page for this week. So make sure you are subscribed in both of those places. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, from the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your DFS lineups for the Safeway Open. We'll talk to you again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.